Not a loud one. Not a blast across every frequency like the old movies showed. Just a whisper in the static, a flicker in the deep silence between stars. It came from a quiet patch of sky near the edge of the Orion Arm, a place humanity had only recently begun to watch with real attention. The automated deep space array at Titan Station caught it first. A repeating pulse, soft but steady, like a heartbeat in the void. Dr. Alara Moss was not on duty that night. She was in her quarters, sipping lukewarm tea and trying to finish. A report on stellar drift patterns when the alert pinged. At first, she ignored it. False positives happened all the time. Comets, pulsars, even glitches in the sensor grid. But the system flagged it with 3 blinking stars. Priority. Anomalous. Repeat confirmed. She sat up. Ilara wasn't the head of xenoscience at Titan Station because she rushed at every beep. She'd earned her place by being careful, patient, and stubborn. She'd spent 12 years listening to space, hoping to hear something that wasn't just noise. Now, her hands trembled slightly as she opened the data stream. The pulse wasn't natural. It repeated every 1.67 seconds, but with tiny variations, not random, but layered like code. And buried in the third harmonic, there was a pattern, prime numbers, then symbols, then a sequence that matched the hydrogen spin-flip frequency. The universal baseline every intelligent species was expected to recognize. Someone was trying to say hello. Ilara didn't scream. She didn't call her boss. She ran, not in panic, but in urgency, down the curved corridor of the station, her boots tapping against the metal floor, her breath quick in her throat. She burst into the monitoring hub where 2 night shift techs looked up in surprise. "It's real," she said, voice tight. "Play it. Now." One of the techs, a young man named Jem, pulled up the audio feed. They turned down the lights. The room went quiet. A low hum filled the air. Then, clear as a bell, a series of tones rose. Simple, musical, almost gentle. It repeated. Then, after a pause, a new sequence began. This one formed a shape on the screen, a spiral, unfolding, like a galaxy, then numbers, then a diagram, 3 planets orbiting a small red star. "It's a map," Jem whispered. Ilara nodded. "And they're telling us where they are." No one slept that night. By sunrise over Saturn's rings, the message had been verified, copied and sent to Earth, Mars, and every deep space relay in range. The United Solar Council was notified. Scientists, linguists, and engineers were waking up across the system, rubbing their eyes, logging in, and staring at the same impossible truth. We are not alone, and someone out there had been waiting. On Earth, the news spread slowly at first. A rumor on the data nets, then a bulletin, then a global alert. In Nairobi, a school teacher paused her lesson and turned on the sky feed. In New Mumbai, a street vendor stopped selling fruit juice and stared at the floating news screen above. The market. On the lunar farms, workers in white suits gathered in clusters, their breath fogging their helmets as they whispered to each other. Humanity had spent centuries wondering, dreaming, arguing. Was there life beyond Earth? Were we special? Were we watched? Now the universe had answered. But the most surprising thing wasn't the message. It was what happened next. 3 days after the signal was confirmed, the second transmission arrived. This one wasn't just sound or math. It was a question, displayed in perfect, clear symbols, and then repeated in over 200 human languages, pulled from old radio broadcasts, internet archives, and satellite leaks, was a single sentence. "Do you remember light?" No one understood it at first. Some thought it was poetic. Others feared it was a test. Religious groups called it a sign. Scientists scratched their heads. What kind of question was that? But Ilara Moss had a thought. She dug into the archives. She searched old deep sky surveys, forgotten probes, and long silent telescopes. And then she found it. a faint, almost erased note from a survey drone launched 100 years ago. It had passed near a dead star system, recorded nothing, but had detected a single strange echo. Not a planet, not a ship, a structure. Artificial, cold, silent. And it had once been lit from within. She stared at the image, her heart pounding. "They're not just sending a message," she whispered. "They're asking if we understand, if we're ready." Because light wasn't just light to them. It was memory. It was life. It was proof that someone had been there. And now they were asking, "Can you see what we saw? Can you feel what we lost?" Alara looked up at the stars through the station's great dome. Somewhere out there, in the dark between stars, another mind was reaching out, not with weapons, not with demands, but with a question. And humanity, for the first time, had a real chance to answer, not as nations, not as tribes, but as one. She took a breath and began to write our reply. Across Earth, Mars, and the orbitals, scientists, poets, engineers, and children stared at those words. Some tried to decode them like a puzzle. Others felt them like a song. A few wept, without knowing why. At Titan Station, Dr. Ilara Moss didn't sleep. She worked. She gathered every scrap of data from the second transmission. It wasn't just the words. It was the way they came. Not as sound, not as text, but as experience. When played through the station's sensory array, the signal created a soft glow in the dark lab, pale blue, pulsing gently, like sunlight through deep water. And for a few seconds, everyone in the room felt calm, safe, as if they had just remembered something they had forgotten long ago. "It's not just language," Ilara said to her team. "It's memory. They're sending feelings with the words." Jim, the young tech, rubbed his arms. "I felt like I was underwater, but not scared, like I belonged there." Others nodded. One woman whispered, "I saw a window, a house, a garden under a red sun." No one had imagined that. The signal wasn't just talking, it was sharing. Back on Earth, the United Solar Council called an emergency meeting. Some leaders wanted to respond with power, show strength, send images of our cities, our ships, our technology. Others argued for silence, fearing the unknown. But Ilara sent a different idea. "Don't answer with weapons or pride," she wrote in her report. "Answer with truth, with light." She proposed something simple, a reply made not of words but of moments, a collection of human experiences, a child laughing, a tree growing in sunlight, a candle lit in a dark room, the glow of a city. At night, the first sunrise seen from the moon. All tied together by one idea, light as life, as hope, as memory. The council hesitated, but the people loved it. Within days, millions sent in clips, sounds, images. A grandmother in Nairobi filmed the sunrise over her village. A diver in the Pacific recorded bioluminescent plankton swirling in the deep. A blind musician composed a song called "Colors I've Never Seen." A boy on Mars drew a picture of Earth glowing like a star and said, "This is how I see home." Ilara and her team wove it all together, not as data, but as a feeling. They shaped the reply into a pulse, like the original signal, but with a human rhythm, a heartbeat, a breath, a spark, and then they sent it. One small burst of light, flying out into the dark. Now all they could do was wait. The days passed. Then a week, silence, doubt crept in. Had they misunderstood? Was the signal gone? Had they gone? Some said it was a mistake, a natural echo, a dream. But Ilara kept the receivers on. She played the reply every night, just in case. She watched the stars, not with hope, but with quiet, faith. Then, on the 14th night, the signal returned. Not a pulse, not a code, A picture. It filled the main screen at Titan Station, so bright that everyone in the room stood still, breath caught. It showed a world, not Earth, not Mars. A planet orbiting a small red star, just like the map from the first message. But this world was covered in glass towers that rose like trees, tall and thin, glowing from within. Rivers of soft light ran between them. The sky was deep purple, and two small moons hung above, reflecting the glow below. And then, movement. Figures, tall and slender, walked through the light. They didn't look human. Their limbs were long, their heads smooth, their skin like polished stone. But they moved slowly, peacefully, hands raised, not in warning, but in greeting. And then the sound came, music, not like human music, deeper, softer, like wind through crystal, but beneath it, a voice, not speaking, singing, and the song matched the rhythm of the human reply. They had recognized it. They had answered. Tears rolled down Alara's face. Jem covered his mouth. Someone whispered, "They heard us." The transmission lasted only 90 seconds. Then it ended. But it didn't feel like an end. It felt like a beginning. Back on Earth, the video spread like fire. People gathered in parks, in homes, on rooftops, watching the alien city, the glowing towers, the beings who lived in light. Children pointed and smiled. Scientists stared in awe. Leaders sat in silence. And then, something strange happened. In cities across the planet, people began turning off the lights. Not all, just some. In homes, in streets, in offices. They lit candles, lanterns, fires in small bowls. They looked up at the stars, not with fear, but with wonder. In New Mumbai, a group of kids drew glowing planets in the dirt with flashlights. In Reykjavik, a choir sang under the northern lights. In the African savannah, elders told stories of the old stars, the ones their grandparents said watched over them. Humanity wasn't just receiving a message anymore. We were remembering something. That light was not just power, not just science, it was connection. And somewhere, far away, another people, who had lived in glass towers and sung to the stars, had not forgotten. They had been waiting for someone to see again, to feel again. And now, at last, they knew. They were not alone, and neither were we. The signal remained silent after that. No more pictures, no more songs. But Alara didn't mind. She stood at the observation deck, looking out at Saturn's rings, glittering in the distance. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, a light had been lit, and we had answered. Now, the universe was listening, and for the first time, humanity had something real to say. The silence after the second reply lasted 23 days. No signal, no pulse, no song from the stars. On Earth, people began to whisper. Had we said the wrong thing? Did they turn away? Were they gone? But at Titan Station, Ilara Moss didn't worry. She waited. She had spent her life studying the quiet between stars. She knew that across such distances, time stretched like rubber. A message could take years to travel. A reply could take longer. What felt like silence to humans might be just a single breath to those who lived under a red sun. Still, she watched. She reviewed every second of the alien transmission. The glowing city, the tall figures, the music that felt like wind through glass. She studied the way light moved in their world, not just as brightness, but as meaning. Their towers didn't just shine. They changed color with the time of day, like living things. Their rivers of light pulsed in rhythm, like hearts. Don't just use light, she told her team. They speak with it, live with it, maybe even dream with it. Jem, now working full-time on the project, asked, what if light is their memory, like photos are to us? Alara smiled. Or better, what if they store their history in light? Like we save books, they save moments, in beams, in colors, in songs. No one knew for sure. But then, on the morning of the 24th day, the signal returned. Not from the same direction. This time, it came from 3 places. 3 pulses, arriving at once, from different parts of the sky. Same rhythm, same tone, same soft blue glow when played through the audio system, but each carried a different image. The first showed the glass city again, but now it was dark. Towers once bright were dim, rivers of light had stopped. The sky, once alive with color, was cold and still. The tall beings stood together in silence, hands raised not in greeting, but in sorrow. The second image was older, a star going dark, a sun shrinking, fading, until only a cold stone remained. Around it, the glass towers stood empty. The third was different. It showed a small, round object, smooth, glowing faintly blue, floating in space. It looked like a marble, but inside, tiny lights moved like stars in a pocket galaxy. Then words came not in human languages this time, but in light, a slow, clear pattern, a star, a planet, a glowing sphere. Then an arrow, pointing toward our solar system, and then a single sentence repeated in symbols. "We sent this before the dark." Alara's breath caught. "They sent it," she whispered. "Years ago, long before. We heard them." Jem stared. "You mean that sphere, it's already here?" Possibility struck like lightning. Scientists across the system scrambled. Telescopes turned. Sensors scanned. Deep space drones changed course. And then they found it. Not near Earth, not near Mars, but drifting in the outer belt, beyond Jupiter. A small object. No engine, no signal, just floating and glowing. When a probe sent its first images, the world held its breath. It was the sphere from the message. Perfectly round, smooth as glass, emitting a soft, steady pulse like a heartbeat. And when scientists played its signal through a speaker, they didn't hear words. They heard a lullaby, gentle, sad, beautiful. It had been traveling for over 200 years. Launched from a dying world, sent into the dark, hoping someone someday would find it. And now, at last, we had. Back on Earth, the discovery changed everything. Schools paused lessons to watch the live feed. Artists painted the sphere as a star child, a message in a bottle from the edge of forever. A composer in Paris wrote a symphony based on the lullaby. A child in Jakarta built a model out of paper and LED lights and called it The Light That. Never gave up. But Alara had a bigger idea. "We can't just study it," she said in a live broadcast. "We should answer, not just with pictures or sounds, with something real." She proposed opening the sphere, carefully, gently, to see what was inside. Some feared it. What if it was a warning, a trap, a disease? But most felt something deeper. This wasn't a weapon, it was a gift. A last hope from a people who believed in tomorrow, even when their own sun was dying. So, with the whole solar system watching, a small robotic arm reached out from the probe. The sphere opened, not with a bang, not with light, but with a single soft tone, like a bell underwater. Inside, no machine, no weapon, just a crystal, tiny, clear, shaped like a teardrop, and inside it, a perfect glowing model of their star system. 3 planets, a red sun. And around the smallest world, a ring of light, not natural, but built, a monument. And beneath it, carved in fine lines, a message. "We were here. We remembered light. We hoped for you." Silence fell across Earth. Then slowly lights began to glow. In cities, homes turned on every lamp. Skyscrapers lit up in waves. In villages without power, people held up flashlights, phones, candles, anything that shone. From space, Earth began to pulse, not in words, in rhythm, matching the heartbeat of the sphere. We were answering, not as a government, not as a species, as a friend. Somewhere, far away, a dead city might never hear. But the message was clear. You were not forgotten. And your light? We're keeping it alive. Not in a vault, not under guard. It was placed in the Global Archive in Geneva, a quiet, open hall where people from every nation could walk in, look, and remember. A small pedestal held it, lit by a single beam of natural sunlight drawn through a glass tube from the roof. Every hour the light shifted, making the tiny star system inside the crystal glow in different colors. Red at dawn, gold at noon, deep blue at dusk. Children came, elders came, scientists, artists, travelers. They stood in silence. Some smiled. Some cried. All felt the same thing. They were standing before something sacred, not because it was powerful, but because it was honest. A message from a people who had lost everything, their sun, their world, their time, and still chose to send hope into the dark, and Earth answered, not with noise, not with pride, with care. Schools began teaching the story. The people of light, they called them. Songs were written, paintings made. A garden on Mars was planted in a spiral shape, matching the glow of their rivers. On the moon, a small monument was built, a circle of glass rods that lit up at night, pulsing in the same rhythm as the sphere's heartbeat. But Alara Moss knew something deeper was happening. Across the solar system, people were changing. Not all at once. Not loudly, but quietly. Lights were no longer just tools. They were meaning. A father in Lagos turned off the bright ceiling lamp and lit a warm bulb instead, saying, "This feels like their city." A scientist on Europa adjusted her lab lights to match the blue pulse of the crystal, just to feel closer. A group of teens on Ceres started a project. They called it Light Journals, where they recorded moments of beauty, sunrise on an ice ridge, a flashlight dance in zero gravity, a candle on a birthday cake. Light was becoming memory, just like for them. Then, one quiet morning, the signal returned. Not from one direction, not from three, from 7. Pulses arriving at the same time, from 7 different points in space. Each carried the same rhythm, the same soft tone, but each showed a different image. 1, a glass tower, cracked but still glowing. 2, a childlike figure holding a small light in its hands. 3, a map, not of one star, but many, connected by thin lines of light, like a Web 4, a sphere, just like the one we found, floating in space. 5, Earth, not from far away, but close, a detailed image, our oceans, our cities, our clouds, and 1 dot, glowing brighter than the rest, Geneva, the archive, the crystal. They were watching. They knew. 6th image, a question, a simple one, a star, a sphere, a hand reaching out, and words. Will you carry it? Ilara sat in the control room at Titan Station, her heart beating slow and strong. Jem whispered, "They're asking us to keep going?" "Yes," Ilara said. "Not just to remember them, to help others remember light." She looked at the map, the web of stars. They weren't alone, she realized. There were more, other cities, other worlds. And when the darkness came, they sent these spheres into the void, hoping someone would find them. "And now," Jem said, "they want us to do the same?" Ilara nodded. "We're not just listeners anymore. We're part of the chain." The idea spread fast, not from governments, not from orders, from people. A factory on Mars began designing new spheres, stronger, smarter, able to travel farther. Engineers on Earth improved the signal so it could last thousands of years. Artists filled them with human songs, stories, images, not just of our cities, but of our kindness. A woman feeding birds, a boy sharing food, a handshake after a long silence. The message was clear. We were here. We remembered light. We hoped for you. And now, we send it forward. The first new sphere was ready in 6 months. It looked like theirs. Smooth, round, glowing, but with a small mark, a spiral, like Earth's oceans from space. Inside, the crystal held 2 star systems, theirs and ours. And a new message, written in light, in music, in images. We found your light. We kept it safe. Now we pass it on. It was launched from a small station near Jupiter. No fireworks, no speeches. Just a quiet release. The sphere drifted away, catching the faint push of solar wind, beginning its long journey into the outer dark. Behind it, Earth, Mars, and the moons shone brighter than ever. Not from pride, from purpose. Ilara watched, from Titan's station, as the signal from the 7 points pulsed one last time. Then silence. But it didn't feel empty. It felt like trust. Somewhere, in the deep between stars, a dying people had reached out, and humanity, small, young, still learning, had reached back, not with weapons, not with conquest, with light. And now, we were no longer just receivers. We were keepers. We were carriers. And as long as we remembered what light could mean, not just as power, but as hope, as memory, as love, then no darkness, no matter how old or deep, would ever win. The universe had asked a simple question. We had given a simple answer. Yes, we will carry it, not in silence, in song. The signal from the 7 points never came again, but its message stayed alive, not just in records, but in hearts. Across the solar system, the idea of the light bearers grew. It wasn't an army, not a government, not even an official group. It was a choice, a quiet decision made by millions to remember that light was more than power. It was promise. Schools taught children not just how to make light, but how to mean it. Artists painted with glow instead of color. Engineers built homes that pulsed gently at night like breathing. On Mars, a new city was designed in the shape of a spiral, its streets lit in waves that moved with the seasons, and the spheres kept going. One by one, new ones were built, not just by scientists, by families, by students, by old men and young girls, who believed in the dark. Each carried a piece of Earth, a laugh, a lullaby, a sunrise, and a copy of the original message. We were here. We remembered light. We hoped for you. They were launched quietly, without fanfare, into the deep. Some would take centuries to reach their targets, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that they were sent. Then, one day, something changed, not with a bang, not with a warning, with a gift. A signal arrived, not from the people of light, but from another direction, a place no one had watched. It was weak, faint, barely holding together, but it carried a pulse, a rhythm, and, when played through the audio system at Titan Station, it made the lights in the room shimmer in soft waves, blue, then gold, then deep violet. Ilara Moss, now older, her hair touched with gray, sat up straight. She had heard this rhythm before, not from the people of light, but from their map, the web of stars. She pulled up the old image, the one with the lines connecting distant suns, and there, near the edge, was a dot, unmarked, unknown. Now, it was singing. The signal was damaged, broken in places, like a voice tired from shouting into the dark, but the message was clear. It showed a world covered in deep oceans. Tall spires rose from the water, glowing from within. But now they were cracked, dark, then an image of a sphere, just like the ones we now built, floating in space. Then words formed slowly in light. "We saw your light." Ilara's breath caught. Jem, now a lead scientist, whispered, "They saw us? They saw our sphere?" Another line of light formed. "We thought we were last. You proved us wrong." The room went still. This wasn't just a reply. It was relief. A people, lost and alone, had watched a tiny glowing sphere drift past their world. And in it, they had seen not just strangers, but family. They had seen the people of Light's message. And they had seen ours, that we had found it, that we had kept it, that we had sent it on. And so, after long silence, they had dared to speak again. The discovery spread across Earth like sunrise. Not everyone believed it at first, but the signal was real, and soon more came. Not from one new place, from 3, then 5, each from a different arm of the galaxy, each showing a different world. A desert planet with towers of sand glass, a frozen moon with lights beneath the ice, a floating city in the clouds of a giant gas world, all once bright, all now quiet, but not gone. They had survived, hidden, waiting, and now they were waking, because of us, because a young species, new to the stars, still learning to listen, had not just heard an ancient message. We had answered. We had said, "We are here. We care. We remember." And in doing so, we had lit a spark in the dark. Back on Earth, people didn't celebrate with fireworks. They celebrated with light. In cities, homes dimmed their lights and turned on soft lamps, each in a different color. Blue for the ocean people, gold for the desert spires, green for the ice worlders. In schools, children made paper spheres and hung them from strings, each with a drawing inside, a star, a face, a hand reaching out. On Mars, the new sphere launch was paused, not canceled, delayed, because now they had more to say. Ilara stood before the United Solar Council, not as a scientist, but as a voice. "We thought we were discovering them," she said, her voice calm but strong. "But maybe they were waiting for us. Maybe the network was never just about survival. Maybe it was about trust, about passing the light to someone who still believes in it." She looked at the leaders, then at the live feed showing Earth from space, a blue jewel glowing with cities, with hope. "We are not the first," she said, "but we might be the ones who renew it, the ones who remind the galaxy that even after darkness, light can return." Silence. Then, one by one, every leader turned on a small lamp on their desk. No words, just light. That night, from orbit, Earth didn't just shine, it pulsed, in a slow, steady rhythm, the same as the original signal. A heartbeat, a greeting, a promise, and far away, in the cold between stars, other lights began to pulse in reply. Not loud, not fast, but clear. We are here. We remember. We are not alone. And because of one small sphere, one quiet choice, one species that dared to say, "You should see this," the web of stars was alive. Again, the signals kept coming. Not every day, not in loud bursts, but like ripples in a pond. Soft, steady, growing. From 12 different points in the galaxy, replies arrived. Each from a world that had once shone, then fallen silent. Each carrying the same truth. They had seen our light. They had heard our song, and they were no longer afraid. One signal came from a planet with no sun, a dark world drifting between stars. Yet beneath its icy crust, deep in warm oceans, life still glowed. Tiny beings, shaped like ribbons of light, had preserved the old message in crystal forests. When they received our sphere's signal, they sang back, not in sound, but in pulses of color, like auroras under ice. Another came from a moon orbiting a gas giant, where cities floated on magnetic fields. Their lights had dimmed for centuries, their people believing they were the last. But when they saw the chain, how the people of light had reached us, and we had reached others, they rekindled their towers. One by one, the glow returned, and with it, a message. You gave us back our courage. Ilara Moss read it and smiled. She sat in her small office at Titan Station, now more library than lab. Shelves held copies of every signal, every sphere design, every child's drawing sent into space. A model of the first sphere hung from the ceiling, turning slowly in the air current. She was older now. Her hands moved slower, but her mind was sharp, her heart full. She had spent her life listening, and now the universe was answering. But something deeper was happening, not just replies, but requests. One came from the ocean world. Can you teach us your songs? Another from the ice moon. We have forgotten how to dream. Show us your stories. And one, from a distant desert planet, broke Ilara's heart. We have no children left who remember light. Will you speak to them? Humanity didn't hesitate. Schools, artists, families, they began creating not just for Earth, but for them. Children recorded bedtime stories, speaking slowly, gently into microphones. Musicians composed lullabies using the rhythm of the original pulse. Poets wrote simple words. The sky is beautiful. The stars are kind. You are not alone. These were sent not in weapons, not in data bursts, but in care. Each new sphere carried a voice, a song, a whisper from a human heart, to one across the galaxy. And when the signals came back, they carried something new. Joy. Not loud, not wild, but deep, like a flame reignited after a long storm. Then one quiet morning, a signal arrived that changed everything. It did not come from one of the known worlds. It came from near Earth. Not from space, from the moon, deep in a crater on the far side, a place always shadowed, always still. A pulse began, soft, steady, ancient, but active. Titan Station picked it up first. Jem, now leading the deep listening team, stared at the screen. It's the same rhythm, he said, but stronger, closer. Ilara came at once. They sent a drone, silent, slow, respectful. When it reached the crater, it found nothing like a ship, no metal, no wires, just a structure. Half buried in dust, shaped like a spiral, made of a smooth black stone that absorbed light rather than reflected it, and at its center, a small, glowing orb, pulsing, alive. The drone played the signal through its speakers. The orb responded, not with words, with a memory. A projection filled the air above it, not on a screen, but in light. Floating like smoke, it showed Earth, but not as it was millions of years ago, jungles, oceans, strange creatures, and then them, the people of light, not just as they were in their city, but here, on Earth. Walking, building, teaching, Ilara, say. Breath stopped. They were here, she whispered. They came long ago, before us, before cities, before language. The vision changed. It showed them leaving, not in anger, not in fear, but in hope. They placed the orb in the crater, set it to sleep, and left a message, not for their kind, for ours. When the time came, when we learned to listen, the final image formed. In the air, a child, human, standing under stars, holding a light, and a single line of text. We believed in you before you were born. Tears fell down Ilara's face. Jem covered his mouth. The truth was not loud, but it was deep. We were not just finding the network, we were returning to it. They had seen us, not as we were now, but as we could be, and they had waited. That night, every light on Earth dimmed. Then, one by one, they returned. Not in brightness, but in rhythm. Cities pulsed in unison. Orbitals glowed in waves. Even the far colonies on Europa and Titan joined. And from the moon, the ancient orb pulsed back. Not once, but in a circle, a loop, a song. We are here. We remember. We are ready. Alara stood on the observation deck, looking at the pale glow of the moon. They didn't just leave a message, she said softly. They left a seed. And now, it's growing. Humanity had not just joined the web of stars, we had awakened it. And the greatest truth of all was not that we were special. It was that we were expected. We were the next, the listeners, the carriers, the ones who would say, across time, across darkness. You should see this. The orb on the moon never stopped glowing, but it changed, not in brightness, in purpose. After the vision, after the message, we believed in you before you were born. Scientists didn't try to move. It didn't try to open it. They built a quiet station around it, not of metal and wires, but of glass and open space, a place to listen, to remember, to learn. And slowly it began to teach, not in words, in light. Every night, at the same moment, marked by the rotation of Earth, the orb pulsed in a new rhythm, soft at first, then stronger, and each time it revealed something more, a symbol, a sound, a shape in the air, like a memory waking. Alara Moss sat with it often, wrapped in a warm coat, her breath fogging in the cold lunar air. She didn't speak. She just watched, listened, felt. One night the orb showed a map, not of stars, of spheres, thousands of them, scattered across the galaxy, some dark, some still glowing, some moving toward new stars. And then, a final message formed in the air above it. The light is not ours. It is not theirs. It is yours to carry. Where will you send it? Alara smiled. She already knew the answer. Back on Earth, the world had changed. Not by force, not by war, but by quiet choice. Cities no longer lit up just to shine. They lit up to speak. At night, the lights of Nairobi pulsed in the rhythm of the first signal. In New Mumbai, rooftops glowed with patterns from the ocean people's song. On Mars, the colony lit its domes in a spiral, the same shape as the ancient orb, and every month a new sphere was launched, not just from governments, from villages, from schools, from families. One was made by a girl in Iceland, filled with recordings of whales singing, another by a group of elders in Kenya who spoke old stories into the crystal. One sphere carried only silence, but inside, a single candle. Flame, recorded for 10 hours, burning steady in the dark. Each one carried the same core message. We were here. We remembered light. We hoped for you. But now, there was more. We are still here. We are still hoping. We are still listening. Then, one evening, the signals began to move, not just replies, but action. From the ocean world, a new pulse. We are building a new sphere. We will send it to the silent star. From the ice moon, we have found a dead tower. We will light it again. From the desert planet, we are teaching our children your songs. They laugh now. The web was not just awake. It was growing, and humanity was no longer just a part of it. We were a spark, a reminder that even after loss, after silence, after centuries of darkness, someone, somewhere, could still choose to reach out. Years passed. Alara grew older. She stopped traveling to Titan Station, but she never stopped listening. On her last birthday, a small event was held on the moon. Not a ceremony, not a speech, a light gathering, people. From Earth, Mars, even a few from the outer stations came in silence. They stood in a circle around the ancient orb. Each held a small lamp, different shapes, different colors, all glowing in their own way. At the right moment, they raised them, and one by one they pulsed, not randomly, but in the rhythm of the very first signal. The orb responded. It didn't just glow, it sang. A soft, deep tone filled the air, not through sound, but through feeling. Like a heartbeat shared across space. And then, from the sky, came something no one expected. Not one signal, but many. From every known point in the network. From the ocean world. From the ice moon. From the desert towers. From the drifting cities, all. At once they pulsed in the same rhythm, matching us, joining us. It was not loud, it was not fast, but it was united. Across thousands of light years in the cold and dark, countless beings, different in shape, in world, in voice, were saying the same thing. We are here. We remember. We are not alone. Tears fell on dusty lunar soil. No words were spoken. None were needed. Alara passed that winter. She died not in pain, but in peace, looking at a live feed of the stars. From her window, her last words were simple. Tell them, we're ready. And we were. Not perfect, not all-knowing, not powerful, but kind, but listening, but trying. And that, the universe had shown, was enough. Today, the spheres still fly. New ones, better ones. Some carry music, some carry silence, some carry only a single word repeated in every language we know. Hello? And somewhere, in the deep, another being may one day find it. They may be tired. They may be alone. They may believe no one is out there. But then, the sphere opens, the light comes, and they hear, not a shout, but a whisper, gentle, calm, full of hope. And in that moment, they will know. They are seen, they are remembered, and they are not the last. Because long ago, on a small blue world, someone looked up at the stars and said, "You should see this." And the light never stopped answering.